If I was to start a horse today, I would do it totally different to how I did it years ago. There are so many challenges all the time. Women go through changes in our body. We go through puberty at that stage. And where I see a lot of women, young girls who love horses, who want to ride more and more, actually stop riding is because they get periods. Women, when we go through these changes in the puberty years, we actually lose our strength. Allow your daughters to speak, and if they're only going to speak when you start to speak, we don't speak about it because we're so focused on performance, the horse, the winning, the training side, the discipline that we all know. I'm currently just about finished my book called The Female Rider Code. And in that book, I'm giving women a blueprint to everything that I've learned. But if a young girl was watching this right now, I would say, start asking questions. If you feel like you're getting a block or you're reaching a block, please reach out. There's people like myself. There's more people online talking about this. However, for people who are on the outside looking in and think, oh, I would love to be around a horse, but I'm actually a bit scared, I don't know. They become better people being with horses. They become better leaders because they become better listeners. I truly believe that horses actually teach us how to be a better human being. So I did my master's in chiropractic for animals. It was a 3-year master's in the UK. So the biggest mistakes I see is skipping meals, cutting out carbohydrates, not drinking enough water, pushing themselves when maybe they should stop. Some breeds are quick learners, some breeds are very slow. It's like a human. I want to be known as the girl who created the shift.
Nika Vorster, thank you for coming to the show. Thank you for your time. I'm glad you could make it. How are you?
I'm great, and thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. And you're doing an amazing work in the internet for the equine community. And I just wanted to give a shout out and spread your message to more people. So how do you explain to new people about yourself?
That's a great question because it's definitely not how I started off in the equestrian industry. We all start with myself, it was ponies, right? Pony club games, riding bareback, no bridle, and just being a kid with your pony. I remember running back from school being like, I just want to ride my pony. That was all. That was my life all the time. So how I would describe it now, we can definitely talk more about the story, but how I would describe myself now for people who don't know anything about me is I'm Nika Vorster, a horse chiropractor, physiotherapist, and I teach people, equestrians, how to become horse listeners.
Okay, that's amazing. Are you aware of the Indian equine community? Have you ever visited India before, or you are familiar with the breeds here?
I have never visited. It's definitely somewhere on the bucket list for sure. So this year I've done some clinics with horses around the world, including Bali. I've been to Thailand, the UK, Dubai. So it's definitely on the list for sure.
Okay, we'll be glad to welcome you here. But where are you from? Which is your native? You've been traveling a lot to a lot of countries, but which is your home place?
So my home where I was born was South Africa. I was born there and lived there for like 12 years of my life. And then, as true animal people, we went and immigrated to the UK. But because we had dogs with us and my pony, um, we spent a year in France. So I actually spent a year in France doing show jumping, learning about the Normandy breeds. I don't know if you've heard about them, but they're the breeds that still to this day kind of do farming. So pulling those massive sledges through the harrows through the mud. They are like 18 hands too. So I spent a year in France and then I immigrated to the UK. And that's where I've done a lot of my training as like a chiropractor, done a lot of riding in the UK. Everything from like flat jockey to a dressage rider. And today I'm speaking to you from Dubai, from the UAE.
Okay. So Normandy, the breeds that you are referring to, is it like a draft breed, like a Belgian draft horse, Bucking horse?
Yes. Yeah, very similar. So their feet are probably about the size of our heads put together. Huge. But as anything with horses, right, doesn't mean because they are bigger, they are more, yes, stronger, but they are actually very sensitive and soft breed. And the training with those horses, the horsemanship with those horses, I think was almost amplified. And as you can imagine, I was probably like, I'm a small person, but I was smaller back then. And to look up at these gigantic horses and think like, I'm powerless. But then when you're working with them, when you're walking with them, and or you have the pleasure of sitting on their back, they're just so soft. They're so sensitive and so willing to work with you. So size does not matter.
Okay. I think you can call them as gentle giants, right?
Gentle giants, yeah, for sure.
Do you also train horses or do you just train people to train horses?
Yeah, so not a trainer at all, just doing the therapy side. So I'm qualified as a chiropractor, physiotherapist, and I do very unique way of treating horses. So, because of my background in pony club and then working as a flat jockey and working with, when people say like behavioral horses, so problem horses, did a few years doing that. And then going into from that kind of work with riding horses that are flipping themselves over, struggling in the starting stalls to then going into dressage. It was almost like, it was quite funny because I turned up at a dressage yard in my jockey breeches, my neck strap, my body protector, like ready for action. And I was riding warm bloods, and that's where I fell in love with Lusitanos and Andalusians who, having read about the Mari breed in India, I think they're very similar in characteristics from what I can see. But that kind of shaped how I have become the practitioner that I am today. So, what I do now is when I treat a horse or when someone brings me a horse to look at, I assess them from the view of they are a blank slate and I will assess what I'm given as opposed to putting them into a box of, the dressage horse, they must act like this. They're an Andalusian horse, they must act like this. I very much assess a horse from how they present to me on the day. And that is a credit to the trainers I've worked with over the years, the falls, all of the setbacks that I've had from riding to being a groom. I feel like that whole experience has helped me become the person I am today. You mentioned training, right? There was a period of time when I worked with racehorses that I was, so we call it starting horses now. I think people are moving away from the word breaking. So starting horses. And the guy I worked with, he would start horses in under 15 minutes. Like that was his kind of, I know, that was his kind of USP, his unique selling point. And for someone who came from Pony Club to that, I was like, my world was just open to a whole new world of horsemanship and learning to read behavior. And we went over to Ireland on a trip with two people who worked on the ground, four people who were the jockeys. And in 2 days, we started over like, I think it was in total 60, 70 young 2-year-old horses in 2 days. It
Wow.
was a hell of an experience, really was a unique experience. But yeah, all of those kind of stories have definitely made me help more horses and also provide the riders with some insights because sometimes I feel like professionals like that come in like veterinarians, farriers, physios, osteos, everyone is very skilled. But I feel like if you've ridden a horse and you can apply your thinking to how the rider is feeling, the horse underneath them, it opens up a new way of treating and communicating. And it also makes the rider feel more heard. feel more understood.
Okay. So this leads to me a lot of questions. But starting with your training method, do you have a specific set of training methods, or do you just follow the usual starting ways, protocols?
So is this in terms of if I was to start a young horse, or is this in terms of me treating a horse?
In terms of starting a horse, like
Yeah.
you can't say breaking now, so just starting, teaching him or her to ride.
Yeah. So if I was to start a horse today, I would do it totally different to how I did it years ago. And I don't even believe now that the 15-minute way is the right way. I don't even think that the 6-week way is the right way. There has to be the way that's right for one, the horse that's in front of you, and number two, the person who has the skills. Because if you have a young horse that is a first-time learner that responds to everything you first ask them to do, and you are unskilled and you don't have the knowledge and understanding to recognize the behaviors that might suggest the horse is a little bit scared or unsure or frightened or very bold. If you don't have the awareness to recognize those behaviors of, I need to slow down now, the horse is overwhelmed, or the horse, this is too much for the horse, I feel like that's where a lot of the starting process goes wrong with horses. I'll give you an example. So when I worked at this behavior yard many years ago, we had a young horse come in who used to bolt because basically where he was started, they put a, like a dummy, they tie these like makeshift people onto the horse's back and lunge the horse until the horse is tired and basically submits, if you want to say that. What happened with this horse is the rider dummy slipped underneath the horse's belly, and so the horse was going crazy from fear, running around this arena with this dummy underneath it, trying to kick it. And obviously, with it being a first time learner, that horse was technically scarred for life. So when he came to us to be like restarted, it was the case of saying, this horse is in fear. He is scared. So there's no point bullying him. He's stronger than us. He will always be stronger than us. But more importantly, and this is how I would start a horse today, is built on trust. So built on trust of me in my own skills and my belief to say to the horse, okay, I'm now going to ask you a question. You have a choice to say no because everyone has a choice. But at the same time, if we can work together, we can make the starting process effortless. So in short, what I would do is always track behavior. And I would check in with myself before I ask my horse a question, whether it's in the saddle, introduction of the bit, before I put the rider on. I would ask, okay, how am I today? Am I stressed? Am I stressed today? Am I scared? Am I ready for the next move? And when I'm ready as the person on the ground, the horse picks up on that. The horse picks up on our confidence, on our energy, on how we show up. And then I would ask one question at a time and allow the horse to either move away or come towards me. Because I'm sure you've seen some horses are very curious. They're very confident when they're young. They want to come up and smell the girth and smell the saddle. I love that, And when you encourage more of that curiosity behavior in the starting process, the horse gets more confident. So when by the time the rider is on, there is no problem because they have that confidence that you've given them from the ground. Also, if I was starting a horse that was maybe very weak, you get maybe these young fillies, which are 2, 3-year-old fillies who their bum is so high from being croup high, and you think, God, they need 2 years in the field. Okay, some of them do need 2 years in the field to grow. But with those young horses, those fillies, is I would do more groundwork until the horse is relaxed, showing me signs of relaxation before I introduce the saddle, the bit, the rider. So that's probably a very long way of answering the question. But in a nutshell, I would start with trust from myself, then allowing that to be transferred onto the horse, and I would assess behavior at every single point.
Okay. But you were talking about starting the horse in under 15 minutes. But how do you desensitize the horse for the saddle? Because it takes some time. Like you told, if you put a dummy and it freaks out, everything goes wrong, and you need to get it back on track again. How do you desensitize the horse under the saddle within 15 minutes? That's mind blowing.
Yeah, so I'll explain the process how I saw it back then, and then I will also kind of explain how I would do it differently. Because out of those like 70 young horses we started, they were a combination of colts, mostly colts, because they were bred for flat racing, some fillies, and some geldings. So interesting, the very laid back colts that were just so relaxed, like even untouched. You could set a bum off in the field and they would look and go, whatever. They had no reaction of exploding, flight, fear at all. So when we brought the colt in, the handler would say, okay, we're going to lunge, walk, trot, canter, both reins. That took about 2 minutes. It's not constant circle. It's just, can the horse walk? Can the horse trot? Can the horse canter? Okay, move on. Then bring the saddle in. The saddle goes on. So the handler is holding the horse, and me as the jockey, I'm putting the saddle on. So that if the horse does do anything, the handler on the ground has complete say to send the horse away or bring the horse in. Most of these colts, because of their temperament and personality, did not explode to the saddle. They might have had a little buck, but it was like, okay. Again, trotting both reins, fine, the rider goes on. And that entire process was like 15 minutes. So that is the process. But out of those 70 horses, there was probably 5 that did not take to that way of starting, and their behavior got worse. So, for example, they would explode with the saddle on. They would explode with the rider on. They would react with the weight of anything on their back. So, looking back now, I would say for them it was too much. It was flooding the behavior. So, when you put too much questions on a horse that they just don't know what to react to, so they react to everything. When if you maybe slowed the process down, they probably would have been okay. So that's how that process worked in under 15 minutes.
Let me just share you my experience of starting a horse. When I first saddled a filly to teach her, she didn't do anything, and I thought, okay, this seems easy. But only till she was standing at a place. Once I asked her to take one step forward, she freaked out. She started bucking, she started rolling, she started running. But still had the lead rope, so I had the control. But once you start moving, they feel something is holding them back or just crushing them or something. So how do you explain? How do you overcome that? And the first time when I get on the saddle, uh, I obviously fear that she's going to bolt. I either do a one ring stop or something to just hold her for my own safety, or I just do not put both my legs on the horse. I just lay flat like a dead weight on the horse from one side. So how do you suggest I do it properly?
So again, it's not my expertise, so I wouldn't want to comment as anyone try or say what I do. This is just the experience I had when I was like a starting jockey. The trust and the person who made the decision for the horse to either go forward or do the turn like you're describing was in the discretion of the handler. So me as the rider I was told the whole time, like, all you have to do is do very little. And when you put your weight on the saddle, and if the handler reading the horse's behavior could tell that the horse was either wide-eyed, like they're going to explode, or they do explode and take that one step forward, the handler would either pull me off as the jockey for safety, or if it was by the time that I was maybe on the horse with my leg around both sides and my head was down, the handler would say, we're on now, so you're going to have to send it forward. But again, as the rider, I would not ride the horse. I would just stay on, and the handler was controlling the speed. That is my experience as a starting jockey, but I would do it very differently now. So if I was in your situation where I could feel the mare or the filly underneath me was very tight, I would spend more time on the ground just doing the same movement, laying on, laying down, laying on, laying down, with constant reward. So the horse is recognizing that this is okay, this is a safe space. And I feel like that's usually when horses do explode, is because they feel scared. They feel unsafe in their environment and they think, I need to get away, I need to flight. But unfortunately, I can't give you an exact answer for it because it's not what I do every day now.
Okay, okay. But your advice on being patient was very crucial. Patience changes a lot of things in the training phase. I think it can either bond you more with the horse or completely separate you and the horse and break the trust forever. I felt that once I've lost patience and I faced it. So your piece of advice on being patient is very important.
Mm. Yeah, I
And
love it.
yeah,
Mm.
coming back to your journey in the equestrian industry, I would love to know what your early challenges were. Many people are still reluctant to make this as a full-time profession. In the Eastern countries, even here in India, mostly parents advise against that and do not encourage taking anything within the equine industry as a full-time profession other than a hobby. What were your early challenges and how did you face and come to this point?
It's a great question. So let's have a think. There were so many challenges all the time. Um, Thinking back, challenges as a female rider, this might surprise you, and I'm going to share it. So early on as a female, especially going through the ages of like 16 to early 20s, my biggest struggle was growing up, was maturing into a woman, because women go through changes in our body. We go through puberty at that stage. And where I see a lot of women, young girls who love horses, who want to ride more and more, actually stop riding, is because they get periods. They develop menstrual cycle, and then they start feeling ashamed, embarrassed. This is not well spoken about. So I hope you don't mind me sharing this, because it's something that is very
Please,
unspoken in the industry. So young girls, obviously, their breasts change. Now, I remember when I was riding, I was jumping a lot, learning to do sitting trot, and the discomfort I used to go through on my breasts, bouncing because of the movement of the horse, the pony, and then I was also in front of male instructors. So it was as a young girl, I felt quite ashamed, I felt embarrassed, and no one taught me or showed me how to eat properly, how to support myself as a rider, and also to not be embarrassed, that it is okay to have these changes. Now, I've done some research on this compared to like how men develop through the younger years compared to females, and there is a big difference. So, women, when we go through these changes in the puberty years, we actually lose our strength. We become a little bit uncoordinated. We feel very weak. Some women actually gain a lot of weight unexplained, but it's all the hormone changes, whereas men don't. Seem to have a very consistent feel. So as a younger rider, I struggled more with that, and I suffered in silence for many years on that topic. So this is why I'm very passionate about it now, to educate more young women that once you have a supportive bra, you know how to eat to fuel yourself as a rider, so help balance your hormones naturally. Your whole experience with horses will be so much better. Then, when I was competing, say, more in around Europe as a dressage rider and a flat jockey, what I really struggled with was more about energy. I was riding a lot of horses every day. And I don't know about you, but most riders, they maybe skip breakfast and they just ride, or they groom, they train their horses, and by the time they sit down and eat, it's like 4, 5 o'clock, and then they crash, have an energy crash. And I see this a lot now, even up to like Olympic level riders that I've worked with here, even in Dubai, where there's really a lack of understanding on nutrition and how to fuel your body as a rider. Like, the people that are listening here, everywhere in the world, that if your horse did not eat breakfast, you would not ride them that day. You would not take them to the competition. Or if your horse, say, skipped dinner the night before and you were going to a show, you'd be like, the horse hasn't eaten the breakfast or dinner, something is wrong. But as riders, we skip that part. We're like, I can't eat, I'm too nervous, I'm too anxious, don't worry about it. So we're running off adrenaline, right? Our cortisol is sky high. And the work I've been doing over the last few years, I've recognized that this is potentially, there's research still to come, maybe why we have more anxiety in our horses, why horses are maybe more nervous at events, because the riders are not fueling themselves. The riders are stressed themselves. And I'm sure you'll know yourself as a trainer. If you show up maybe and train a horse and you're a little bit angry, like we all have emotions, say something's annoyed me in the car, or maybe you're feeling a bit frustrated, like you might have a different session with your horse that day compared to if you showed up more relaxed, more laid back, you've had a good day, you're happy. So why would it be any different when we're riding our horses for competition? So in those years when I was competing a lot, I spent a year in Australia as a flat jockey riding, and I was so lean. I was the leanest I've ever been. But my God, I was struggling with energy, fatigue. Again, my menstrual cycle was not good. But again, we don't speak about it because we're so focused on performance, the horse, the winning, the training side, the discipline that we all know. Riders and becoming a rider, you have to be so disciplined in your execution of what you ask your horse to do. And then what I recognize now, looking back on all of these times in my life, was every single horse that I was presented with, every challenge. So whether it was maybe a horse struggling to load, maybe it was the horse bucking when I was on, maybe it's the horse flipping over. All of these quite extreme behaviors and challenges that we face as riders. Like, I'm not saying it's not the horse, because what happens if the horse has got a physical problem? Of course, they're going to show you their own pain. But what if we asked ourselves, as the rider, as the trainer, as the therapist, as the veterinarian, how are we today? Are we energized today? Do we feel good? How can we expect our horses to be good if we're not good? Just a thought. But yeah, those are some of the challenges I've faced kind of over the career.
I think this is a very valuable point that you just mentioned because uh, obviously, just imagine more traditional societies, like even in India, if people like you did not go, did not have enough mentorship or went through such struggles, and you faced a lot of struggles initially, uh, I guess that women in India also face the same kind of issue. This is an even more traditional society, and this is an even more taboo topic, and nobody speaks about it. So I'm really glad that you talked about it. My question is, how would you advise an Indian girl or woman watching this to
Mm,
overcome this obstacle and get into the equine industry, become a rider, trainer, whatever?
I love this. And it's going to start small, right? We have to start small as women, and it comes from a culture. So platforms like this are fantastic, that we can talk openly about puberty, periods, breasts, all of these words that in certain cultures all over the world are almost deemed upon. Don't speak about it, it's embarrassing, but it's biology. Okay. So the first thing I would say is any women, mothers, grandmothers, cousins, nieces, allow your daughters to speak. And if they're only going to speak when you start to speak, share your stories, share the struggles you've had going through menstrual cycle, perimenopause, menopause, postmenopause. Share those stories. My biggest advocacy right now is I'm currently just about finished my book called The Female Rider Code. And in that book, I'm giving women a blueprint to everything that I've learned and how they can improve their selves, stabilize their hormones, but also improve themselves as riders in the saddle. Because women, we train very differently to men, but it's not a poor me thing. It's honestly, I think we have superpowers, women, when we know how to work with our hormones. So this is everything in the book, which is coming out next year in 2026. But if a young girl was watching this right now, I would say start asking questions. If you feel like you're getting a block or you're reaching a block with maybe your culture or your people around you, please reach out. There's people like myself. There's more people online talking about this. Reach out. The second thing as well, which I think is not understood. So when I was thinking back to being like 16 to 21 and I was having lessons with male instructors, was me not speaking up and saying, I might be a little bit slow today, or I might be just a little bit uncomfortable today because I started my period. The trainer, I'm sure, will not judge you. And if he judges you, get rid of the trainer. It's easy. But I'm sure the trainer won't judge you. And I'm sure if someone came up to you, so a young girl said to you, listen, I'd love to have a lesson with you today, but just to let you know, I've started my period. I'm a little bit uncomfortable. So I might ride a bit more tight. I might be a bit stiff, which will affect my horse. I'm sure your approach to the lesson would be very different. And it's the same with me. So young girls learn how to speak up. The family around you, ask them questions. And if there's any mothers here listening, ask your daughters questions. How are they? Remind them that it's okay that you change and that your body will change every few years, depending on what you eat, how you train, and how your hormones are. And that is okay. We don't have to be a victim to our bodies. When we learn how to understand our bodies, everything becomes a lot easier. And the best thing is that you will become a better rider for your horse, a better trainer. You will be more compassionate. You will be more empathetic. And you will actually, as you said beautifully earlier, teaches you patience, because when you learn to slow down, and I think this is one of the greatest things that horses teach us, is when we actually learn to slow down and listen, that is when we actually make bigger progress in our sessions, in our riding and everything. When we are go, 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 we become overwhelmed and we lose that like connection with the horse.
Okay.
Yeah.
So congrats on your book. Let me know when it comes out and I'll share it with our community here. And I think a lot of Indian women and girls will benefit from this, because I know a lot of people, a lot of girls who love to learn to ride but are very shy, just like you said. So I think this will help a lot of people. But
Mm.
do you think as a woman there are certain advantages of being a horse rider? You just told some disadvantages. Do you also think that there are certain advantages for a woman as a horse rider?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. And it goes back to me thinking like, because I'm small, I'm like 5'2". I'd always say to myself, like, I'm not very strong. I'm not as strong as a man. I can't get my legs wrapped around the horse. You know, you see these long legs on some men, they just wrap their legs around the horses and the horse goes. But when women learn to slow down, when we learn to recognize our body, we are, I believe, because I'm a female, I can only speak from myself, so nothing against men here. You have an ability, like almost a sixth sense, with the compassion, empathy, and intuition, which doesn't require verbal communication, that you feel, that horses feel. So I read something the other day where I think horses' hearts are like 5 times bigger than our heart, like the size of their heart. And that means that they're don't quote me on this, but their like frequency and their ability to pick up on other beings is obviously 5 times heightened compared to our ability. And this is why I'm sure if you've seen like wild horses, it's usually a lead mare. She's usually the one in charge, is the lead mare, the quiet one. Usually without even saying a word or without even making a big sound, the whole herd will run because the lead mare has picked up a change in the frequency. And there is something so powerful in women's ability to tune in to ourselves and allow that compassion side to come out. I'd love to share something with you, which I thought was like a negative thing for me, very shy person, was being emotional. So when I was growing up as a young girl, my close people around me used to say, "Don't be emotional, be strong. Don't show emotion. Emotion is weak." So for many years, I thought emotion was weak. And then I learned, okay, it's not good to be emotional in terms of running around the street screaming. That's maybe too far. But if you learn how to regulate your emotion and show your emotion in a way that others resonate, you become so much more understood. These are the things that I teach in the Horse Listener, is I teach people that when you actually learn to regulate your emotion, not to hide them, but to understand the emotion, your connection with the horse is unspoken. You don't even need to say anything. The horse feels it, you feel it, you move on. It's almost a bit magical.
Yes, it feels supernatural what you just said, like not even talking, and if the heartbeat raises, like they're communicating without any form of verbal communication or noise or anything. That is amazing, right? So you feel
For
that
sure.
women do have that superpower.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Okay, even physically, what I have noticed is in bareback riding, I feel that women's hips are designed to easily ride a horse without a saddle. That is what I personally noticed. I have not read any research papers, but I've just practically observed that men find it a bit more difficult to ride a horse bareback, but a woman can effortlessly do it. Have you ever observed this?
Yeah, for sure. And again, it right depends on the type of horse you're sat on. So if you're sat on a very narrow, like skinny horse with a pronounced spine, it's uncomfortable for both men and women. But if you're sat on that breed that has more of like a barrel shape rib cage, it is so effortless and so easy. And yeah, because of our childbirth capabilities as women, we have a naturally different shaped pelvis. Even the tilt of our pelvis is different to men. And yeah, there is now, again, not my expertise, but I work with a lot of saddle fitters around the world. And I see that there is going to be a change in how we make saddles for men and for women because of the shape of our pelvis. But as you rightly said, women can actually open our pelvises more. But not only that, we sit differently because we can sit back, whereas men obviously, so we can sit back and sit forward because we don't have anything to protect in the front compared to the men. And this is something I've also observed, but I couldn't give you the exact science behind it. But there's exciting research coming out with different saddles for men and women because of the way our anatomy is built.
Okay.
Mm.
So coming back to your horse listener quote that you mentioned on LinkedIn, what does horse listener mean according to you?
Mm. It's something I have been honestly struggling with for many years is how to tell people what I actually do, because the label is the chiropractor, the label is the osteo, but it never felt like this is me. And some people, having done this now for 10 years, are actually don't book chiropractors in because they're scared it might hurt the horse. So I didn't like that, because when I work with a horse, it's never about me, it's always about the horse. And so developing the horse listener has honestly come about through years of watching how riders interact with horses, how people that are vets, trainers, farriers, dentists, how they all interact with horses. And we all have an end goal, which is to make the horse better. But I feel like there's something deeper, which is why I developed the horse listener, because behind all the rosettes, behind chasing the money, why do we do the sport, right? There is, again, something so inherent in us that, for me personally and the people I've spoken to, we just love horses. Like, they do something to us as a human race that, whether you have nothing to do with horses or you just know you need to be around a horse, there's something there. I'm still trying to figure out the word, but the more I've done research into it, and I ask myself, I'm like, people want to become horse listeners. They want to ride their horse effortlessly. They want to be a trainer that can be able to understand what the horse and the rider is saying without an explanation. And that's how I developed this horse listener framework, which takes riders on a journey not only to understand their horse's individual personal behavior relationship, but as you've probably gathered from my way of thinking, it has to start with the person first. Because if you are not aware of your own body, and you must know this as a trainer when you maybe train or see riders, if riders are not aware of their own center of mass or their own thinking, they are not going to communicate well with the horse, because the horse is saying, well, I don't know where you are because you don't know where you are. So it's like having a sat nav in your car with no destination. But once the rider is the sat nav and has the destination, the communication between the horse is easy. And that is what a horse listener is all about.
Okay. So this kind of resonates with my mission also. What I try to do through my channel Animagi is to educate the community, to bring more people into the equine industry, to make them ride the horse for the first time and experience it, and just make them understand what the magic this is. They don't realize the physical benefits, the mental benefits, and even the spiritual connection that they can experience when they connect with a horse and ride on a horse for the first time on their life. So that is what I kind of try to do. I try to bring an awareness and educate and shout out to people like you who are contributing to the equine community. And so I think the mission resonates for both of us. It is kind of similar. So
I love,
that is,
I'd love to ask you a question on what you've just said. So when it comes to,
and
you said people, bringing
yeah,
people
yeah.
in, that are maybe not from a horse background or they learn how to ride, how do you feel their interaction is with the horse for the first time?
Okay, you're asking me.
Yeah.
Many people are interested, but they live in cities and I live in the countryside, and I can easily own horses. I can easily breed them, train them. I can find the time and resources here. Many people are quite interested, but they cannot afford the time or mainly time. Time is and the location is the problem, but they are interested. What I try to do is I just try to woo them with good content or through some of my writing videos. It is not monetary. I just call some of my friends, invite them over to come and just try riding for some time. And since I just do content creation as a passion, this is not my main source of revenue. So I'm not into this for money. So I just try to bring a lot of people into the equine community. That is all I try to do through my content, through my personal networks. Somehow I just bring them and make them sit on a saddle for the first time and just observe what they are feeling. That is like a high that I get.
And that's powerful when it goes into also the very similar idea of, obviously, we are passionate equestrian people. However, for people who are on the outside looking in and think, oh, I would love to be around a horse, but I'm actually a bit scared, I don't know, from personal experience and seeing people who are not horsey come into the equestrian industry, they become better people being with horses. They become better leaders because they become better listeners. They become more patient. They're actually able to communicate better because what horses teach us is more than riding. I truly believe that horses actually teach us how to be a better human being by these skills and qualities. And that's why the passion and the kind of intention you have behind bringing people in that are not even equestrian is really quite powerful on its own. And it's something that I advocate when I talk to people, even in corporate, who say, I'd love to be with a horse, but they scare me. And I'm thinking, well, then you need to be around a horse because they're going to show you qualities that you can bring back to your everyday work life. They'll show you qualities that you can bring back to the family, a horse.
Yeah, and they also teach you leadership. They also teach you to be a proper leader, the right way, not to be too abusive or physically violent, but still have a command over them and make a powerful animal, an animal which is a lot powerful than you physically, to obey you and mutually find a path, a common path and a vision. That is leadership. Horses teach that, right?
100%.
Yeah. So how about your what is a chiropractor actually? Many people are still skeptical about a chiropractor. Could you bring in awareness or explanation on that?
Yeah, so in a very shortened version, chiropractors look at nerves. They look at how the spine functions. That is basically the role of a chiropractor. So obviously we all have a spinal column and you have within that spinal column nerves coming out of it. And the role fundamentally of a chiropractor is to ensure optimal nerve function. So how the nerves are moving. Obviously, there is so much behind that. There's obviously different types of chiropractic. So America has a very different teaching of chiropractic to the UK, and then I'm sure it'll be different anywhere in the world. So the biggest thing I would say to anyone who's maybe unsure about the chiropractor and if it's right for them, thanks to social media, is go and visit the website, go and look at them on social media, ask people what it's about, because any treatment can be suited for a horse, but also not suited for the horse, depending on the person who's applying it. And that would be the biggest thing I'd say to anyone who's a bit unsure is do your research, ring the practitioner, ask them, how do you treat? What do you do? It's the same with humans, right? I'm sure those of us that might have had a chiropractic treatment ourselves might have had a good one or a bad one. Like it doesn't define the whole chiropractic style for everyone in the world. It's very individualized.
Is it learnable? Is there a professional course or a place to learn it?
Yeah, so I did my master's in chiropractic for animals. It was a 3-year master's in the UK.
Okay. So you also run a podcast, right? For horses. I would like to know more about that, what you do, and what your goal is on that podcast.
Yeah, so the podcast is called Heal Your Horse, and it is all about different ways, different stories, very honest and raw people from around the world, equestrian people sharing their failures, their challenges with some wins. But most importantly, the reason why we're all doing this is because we want to be better people for our horses and we want our horses to be the best they can. So it's a very open podcast. I've talked to trainers, I've talked to saddle fitters, behaviorists. So if anyone wants to go and have a little listen to those, feel free to. They're all on YouTube, all free.
I'll make sure to give the link so that people can check it out. And coming back to the equine community, I've always thought that career opportunities within the equine industry is still not a great option, at least in countries like India. It is where it is still a traditional practice, and some sports like polo and horse racing are still here, but majority of the horse owners are owners of the native Marwari breed, which was almost extinct during the British rule, and we had to revive it back, and it is on a good path now. But career options in the equine industry, at least in India and some Eastern countries, are still not vast. Do you can you advise on any career opportunities within the equine industry for people, young people who are willing to come?
Mm. I can speak for myself, which is I followed my passion. So I started my riding career just loving horses and ponies, and I still love them today. And I started with going down the ride opportunity route, so becoming a jockey representing the country, and that was my main passion was competing, right? But I very quickly realized that I'm not interested in the rosettes, and that there's more fulfillment in my career and life to give something back to horses, and that's when I went down the route of becoming a chiropractor. What I would say for those that are unsure is reach out to equestrian people within your community and ask the question, ask them if you can go and spend the day with them. Equestrian communities, I can speak for the ones I've worked with all over the world, are always seeking help. They're always needing volunteers. They're always happy for people to learn. So if you're not sure where to go down, is reach out. Drop someone an email. Everyone nowadays gives their phone number away. Ring people. Like, I think a lot of us can hide behind the screen, but at the end of the day, we're all human beings. And if you're unsure, is go and spend some day with different equestrians and see what you like and ask them questions how they started, because that is how you're going to figure out if this is for you or if it is not for you. And I always see things as an opportunity. So if there's something lacking in your community, if that is wherever that is in India, it's a case of saying, okay, if no one is doing this yet, what an opportunity this is for me to be the person to bring it to India. And, everything about life is looking at it from a perspective. So if it's not there, it means it's not there yet. So why not be that person who changes the industry?
That is a great perspective. Which means, could you also advise on any startup or business opportunities within the equine industry for someone to start now?
Yeah, again, I'm going to say when you're wanting to start something, whatever it is just make sure it's in alignment with your values as a person, because anything in entrepreneurship, I'm sure you can agree if you own your own business, it is a roller coaster of emotion, and there is more tough days than good days. So whatever startup, whatever idea you have, is make sure that it is in alignment with who you are as a person. It's a long road as entrepreneur. It's a long road to creating something that you truly want to have impact in the world in. So if you're going to do it, ask yourself first, who am I? What do I believe in? And how can I help the people? How can I help the horses? There's opportunities all around us, from, individualizing tack nowadays. We used to have one bridle, one saddle, one girth, fits everything. Nowadays, you have custom bridles, bits, saddles, girths, and, they're not all that great. They're still learning. So that's one opportunity there. Tack, in my opinion, is the biggest cause of pain in the horse. So the more research we can do on understanding tacks for the horses, and as we spoke about today, even saddles for females, saddles for men, like it is a huge, ever expanding market. The same thing when it comes to knowing the horse, right? So if there's a specific breed in your country that is quite unique and precious, understanding the training styles for that breed, and educating people more about that, there's a startup on its own, because as you said, horses have more than just like a monetizing effect on us. They bring us a lot of fulfillment and joy. So if you can figure out ways to improve management of horses, there's some startup ideas as well. The list is ongoing.
Okay, okay, that's amazing. Do you have a favorite horse sport,
A favorite horse breed?
a horse breed, and a horse sport?
Yeah, I don't have a favorite horse sport um, because I like and don't like all aspects of all of them. So I like the variety of, say, the fast-paced adrenaline feeling of being a flat jockey, running in a herd of horses. It's just such an adrenaline feeling. And then I also like the patience and discipline that I learned in dressage. The technique and breakdown of show jumping and eventing, like understanding a stride, really understanding that biomechanically from the horse and the rider taught me so much. I've recently turned to polo, and even that, like the skill that you need to have with your balance, your hand-eye coordination. So there's so many things I take from each discipline. Um, and put it all together. So you see nowadays, Liberty is fantastic. People riding bareback, riding with no bridle. I find it absolutely incredible. And when I have a horse one day again, it'll be doing the journey of Liberty. That is the next goal for me. That is the next mission.
Okay, my best wishes. And what is one thing that you wish changed today in the equine community?
What's one thing I would change in the equine community?
Yeah.
That's a really good question. I would ask people to slow down and ask themselves why they are asking their horse that question.
Okay. That that's simple, but yet it seems deep. The answer seems deep.
That is it's got layers and layers behind that. Yeah, I think we'd have a lot less behavioral issues in horses. And I think we would also have a lot less pain and would have more fulfillment as a rider when we just stop, slow down, and ask ourselves why we're doing this.
Okay. I've also noticed that you love to have a fitness routine, if I'm not wrong. Yeah. So how do you explain your fitness routine and what kind of fitness workouts or diets do you advise the people?
Mm. Yeah, all of this I have put into the Female Rider Code, the book, but I also work with female riders online. So I do this virtually. It's a 6 week horse and rider reset that I have put together. And in that, I take women through, first of all, understanding their body, then teaching them what food fuels them. I don't believe in dieting, I don't believe in cutting things out. I believe in understanding your body and giving your body what your body needs to thrive. So everyone is individual. When it comes to workouts for riders, like weightlifting, weight training, body weight exercise is so important. Now, I'm not saying you need to become a bodybuilder or a weightlifter because there is actually a point where too much muscle can hamper your riding ability because of as a rider, we have to be quite agile, but also stable in our core, in our posture. So there is almost pros and cons to just doing weightlifting. However, weights as a whole for riders, for men and women, is so important to maintain muscle mass. Um, what I do with women is I understand their cycles and then I give them training exercises to suit their stage of their cycle. So for example, when that first week of when you're bleeding to that week before you bleed, the exercise is very different. Your energy is very different. And when you as a female rider know that, and this is what I can teach you, you then go through every month feeling so much better within yourself. Your horse's performance improves instead of plateauing or hitting these stumbling blocks because women naturally every single month have a fluctuation of when they feel tired, uncoordinated, they feel weak. This is not a woman being weak. This is biology. And when you know this, you can adapt your training and everything in your 28-day cycle will feel so much more easy.
Mhm. I feel a lot of people, beginner people especially, would make these kind of mistakes if they do not have a proper mentorship. What
Yes.
are the beginner mistakes do you often see people doing?
From nutrition or from movement?
Nutrition, everything, anything.
So the biggest mistakes I see is skipping meals, cutting out carbohydrates, not drinking enough water, pushing themselves when maybe they should stop, pushing the horse through it because they want to finish that exercise. They want to get that simple change and they put all their focus and frustration on it when maybe the variables are the horse is tired. Maybe the rider is tired. Maybe they're in the latter phase of their cycle and it's just not the time to ask for these kind of questions. So those are the common mistakes I see. In a nutshell, I'd say the biggest thing is that we, as riders, we have this mentality of don't be weak, push through. And I almost want to say it's the opposite, because when we are more vulnerable, our horses respond. Our horses know when we're a little bit upset. If we give them the space and time, they come up to you. And we've all felt that moment of the horse coming up to you, nothing said, but they know something's wrong. And the biggest thing about you must be strong. Right, horses respond more to subtle signs than they do force and pressure. And those are the two biggest things: is not push through, is to actually stop and understand what's going on. Those are probably the biggest mistakes I see.
Okay. Okay. Now, if you were to advise me on choosing a horse or buying a horse, independent of the breed, how would you advise me? What are the things that you would look at when choosing a horse?
So if I was choosing a horse for myself, it'd be very different to if you asked me to choose a horse for you.
Okay.
So I think nowadays a lot of people buy off emotion. They buy off of maybe they've lost a horse and they just can't live without not having a horse in their life. So they buy the first horse that comes into their peripheral vision and it ends up being the wrong horse. Like there's got to be, have you heard that saying, horses for courses? So just because you've bought a horse that's maybe advertised as an endurance horse, it might not want to do endurance. It might not actually want to do it, and that's okay. So basically, what I would do if I was looking for a horse is I would ask myself what I'm actually looking for. What's my goal with this horse? Do I want to compete? What kind of events do I want to be doing? The second thing I would ask myself is, what's my skill level? Like, can I take on a young horse? Like, maybe when I was in my young 20s, I would ride anything. Now in my late 30s, I'm a little bit more cautious because of obvious reasons. You have more responsibilities when you get older. So the age of my horse that I would pick for myself would be very different. The breed is a big thing. So some breeds learn very differently. Some breeds are quick learners, some breeds are very slow. It's like a human. Some of us learn very quick, some of us need to learn in a different way. So I would ask myself what kind of teachings I want to do when I ask the horse, because that's important to the breed. And the third thing I'd ask myself, you can see it's all about me first before the horse, is what's my management? Because if I have a yard that doesn't have turnout, and I get a young hot-headed horse, that is unfair for the horse. That's like cruelty. And if I have an older horse and there's no turnout, that's also cruelty. Horses need to move. So it's asking myself what my management is, what my time is. A lot of women I work with haven't got time to ride their horse every day. And they'll say to me, I want to buy a young horse. And I'll say, do you really have the time to exercise a young horse every other day? No. Well, don't get a young horse. You have to ask yourself first what you can give to the horse, and then whatever you are clear on, that's then the criteria. And you make sure you stick to that criteria when you go looking for horses, because nowadays with social media, you never know who you can trust. People will always show the best part of the horse on the video. You want to go with an open heart. You want to see the horse being tacked up. Don't have it tacked up. You want to see how it is when it is tacked up. You want to see the mounting block process, how it stands. I would go one step further. I would want to see the horse ridden in company, alone, whatever is really important to you and how you're going to ride that horse back home is what you want to see when you go and purchase a horse. Everything.
Okay. Okay. So, last question to you. I usually ask this to all the people. How do you want to be remembered by the equine community after?
How do I want to be known in the community, equine community?
Yeah, how do you want to be remembered by the equine community? What kind of legacy do you want to leave for the equine
I want to be known as the girl who created the shift in teaching people how to become horse listeners and the voice for women to speak up about their bodies.
community? That's an amazing vision, and I truly wish you achieve that goal. Yeah, and
So
uh, you're active on a lot of platforms. How can people watching this reach out to you or follow you? Where can they follow you for your work on what you do?
sure. So I'm on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. On Instagram, I'm Nika, the horse listener. And I'm also another page, Nika, the female rider code. As I said, the book's coming out next year, which is the female rider code. And then the sequel to that will be the horse listener, which is going to come out at the end of 2026. Google my name, Nika Vorster, it'll come up.
I'll make sure to give your name, the account links below for people to reach out to you or follow you in all the platforms. And please make sure to reach out to me once your book launches so that I can share it with our community here. I think people will be really excited to read the book. And it has been a great pleasure to host you today. You've given a lot of valuable information, and I think the most crucial information is about educating women, especially many women in India, many girls in India would really benefit from this. I hope you create a lot of women riders through this video. So, thank you so much for doing this. I hope you enjoyed it.
Thank you for the opportunity. And yeah, I'm available for educational talks, demonstrations. I travel around the world doing this. So let's create the shift.
Okay. Thank you.